to get that going.
Yeah, for sure. Because so with all of our different platforms that we have, with TikTok and Instagram and everything that we got going on, you can see like definitely communities of veterans within that community, right? And you can see the ones that want to post the rage bait. So like if a veteran's out there doing something good, and you're going to have those people out there that's going to be like, oh, well, he's stolen valor or something, and just to get that rage bait, just to get the views and stuff like that. That goes on a lot in TikTok. I've noticed that here recently, and it's just like, man, this is stupid. It's almost like you don't want to be involved within that community because here you are trying to do some positive stuff and everybody's just trying, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are trying to push back on that negative side of things. And it just blows my mind because like for me, who I am as a veteran, I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I served from 97 to 01, got out, then got recalled back in. And then after I got out, when people ask me what did I do in the Marine Corps, I'm an infantry guy. That's what I tell them. I don't go into any other details. I just say, hey, I was in the Marine Corps infantry, and that's it. But if you ask me who I am personally, I'm still the same person I was 25 years ago. I'm just modified it to now where I'm focusing on one veteran a day, so they don't become part of that 22. And I'm gonna throw the quotes up there. And that's who I want people to see me for me, because I'm not. If you do me dirty, if you treat me wrong, you ain't getting a second chance. Come at me straight, be honest with me, and we're fine. But as soon as you cross that line and you break that trust, it's over. I'm not going to have anything else to do with you.
I mean, I feel like that happens no matter what social media platform you really go on. To be honest, it's just, and it sucks, that's the reality now. But I mean, negativity gets views, right? And stupid stuff gets views, and arguments and bickering back and forth and all this crazy, it all gets views, and it gets people to go viral, and their videos get more comments and likes, and it's just it at this point it doesn't matter. And it's I'm a Marine Corps veteran also, but I'm a hip hop artist as well. So in the music industry, it's the same way. Like, something controversial that makes no sense whatsoever. Like take what Kanye West is doing right now. I don't know if you guys have seen or been following what he's been saying and all the outlandish shit that has been leaving his mouth, and what he's been doing, showing up to interviews with guys that have a big platform, like DJ Academics, and he's showing up in a black KKK outfit. And, now he's talking about how his new single Cousins was about how he was going down on his male cousin until he was 14. And now he's running with all this, but he's saying such crazy stuff. But you see that, and you see the views it gets, and you see the engagement it gets, and the comments it gets. Whereas somebody like me, who, I'm passionate about my craft, and I'm not saying that Kanye West is not. Obviously, musically, I feel he is a genius, but somebody who doesn't have that kind of negativity on my posts and my music, and I try to do it, legitimately and show my passion in that, and I make something wholeheartedly like meaningful, it doesn't get as many reactions, it doesn't get as much views, it doesn't get as much clicks. So really, it's just the way that social media is now. And I'm kind of glad that I've stepped away from it for a little bit and kind of cleansed, minus the updating with what was going on with my wife, to let family and friends that are outside of my general vicinity know what's going on, who wanted to keep up. Because honestly, if I didn't do that, then I would have gotten 500 phone calls a day. So instead of that, I just posted on Facebook so all these people could be updated at the same time. But I took a break from it for the most part, man. And it's been great because I don't feel the need to say something negative to that person who tried to clap at me on something that I said before, or, something I posted, like a video of mine that I posted, like a clip of me performing live on stage. And then somebody immediately responds with, "Oh, you sound like Eminem." Like I get that all the time. So it's like, ooh, you know, I used to get super butthurt about it, and I used to be like, oh yeah, and like, you know, get into it. But now I'm just like, oh, tell me something I haven't heard before.
So there's a comment on TikTok from Miss Betsy Ross. She says being authentic is seen as boring, I feel.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was leading into. Like nobody wants to see anything authentic anymore. And they say that they do. And that's the funny thing about it. They say they want authenticity. They say they want you to be unique, but then when you're unique, you're not going to get paid attention to.
Right.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Theory, that Willis told us about you. Now me and my son listened to you, and actually we went on a trip to West Virginia from Iowa a few weeks back, and he pulled your stuff up, and we were rocking to it while we were driving down the road. So,
dude, that's so dope. Thank you.
It was pretty good. We like your rap. It's pretty good.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Hip hop.
But you don't hear me though.
Yeah. But do they really hear me though?
No, it's interesting to say that. I was trying to get everything ready for dinner tonight, and I was listening to some of y'all talk before I got on, and I realized that after doing, 97, 98 episodes of our podcast, I realized that I'm pretty boring. Like I don't have that many problems. You may think that there's a lot of stuff going on here, and like Rich can identify with exactly what I'm talking about. The op tempo we had at Fort Campbell made us think that some of the abnormal shit that we were doing when you kind of got out of that, in 2017 or whenever you retired, you realize that, holy shit, we were doing some crazy things for a lot of years. But through this podcast and through, being friends with you guys and networking out, you realize that, yeah, I am pretty boring because I don't have a lot of that mental white noise going on in my head. Like there's not a lot of shit going on there anymore. Things are pretty clear. And you guys have had a lot to do with that. And that's the biggest reason why I don't answer those things anymore, comments or otherwise, is because it can keep you up at night. And for the first 30 or 40 episodes, I was constantly on that stuff, and it had a definite degradation in my personal mental health, and how your mom and dad goes is kind of how the family goes. So I was bringing my kids down with it, so had to kind of get rid of that stuff. So here's what I'll tell you. Being boring is kind of fun, because being boring means that you're probably doing what you need to do with your job, doing what you need to do with your family, and you don't have a lot of that other noise out there. And that's been the biggest source of peace for me with all these podcasts that we've been doing. That's been the biggest thing that's helped me. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah.
So, Ty, I guess my question for you would be, how do you get to that point as a veteran, right?
Oh, I don't think I'm there yet. I think I'm definitely on the road. Like we had a great interview today with like a gentleman Rich knows, one of the former division commanders of Fort Campbell. And it was tremendous to see him, but you realize that people work at such a high level, and maybe I'm not meant to be at that high level anymore. I used to have a pretty high battle rhythm, but now I don't want that. So I think you have to just realize and find what you want to do and find what you're good at, and kind of find, everybody says find your tribe, but what I've noticed is that my tribe has gotten smaller. I used to always want to be involved in everything. I know what fucking Kanye's saying, in pop culture, I'm all over it. I want to know about the 3-body problem. I want to know when we're getting to Mars. So I have military grade ADHD. So if you allow that stuff to enter your life, it will permeate every decision you make. And that's the biggest thing my wife told me. You got to cut that shit out and concentrate on your 6 kids, your grandkids, and then the very small group of people that you want to allow in. But, we've had, drama happen with our podcast, and you got to shut that noise down. Military grade ADHD.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
It's kind of like a shot in the foot for someone like me too, because unfortunately, granted, I'm the one who chose to, start doing music, but I don't regret it by any means. I'm not saying this in a negative way, but unfortunately, with the path that I've chosen and the path that's brought me the most peace, right, with me doing music, it's brought me the most peace with my soul, my mental health, everything. And it kind of just allows me to speak and get it all out there. But unfortunately, it kind of goes hand in hand with, I almost have to be involved with how many views am I getting? How many plays am I getting? How many streams am I getting? Is this song taking off, or is it just dead in the water? Was this a flop, or do I see a chance of it going viral? And so I kind of have to sort of engage with that. And so it's difficult for me to find that happy medium, right? And thankfully the Marine Corps kind of like what you were saying, right? Like my limit was, or my battle mentality, whatever you'd said, Ty, I can't remember the exact phrase, but like that was up here, like when I was in the Marine Corps, and then bringing a lot of that into my civilian life post transition, right? It was difficult, but I was thankful for that kind of mentality. So I try to incorporate some of that into what I do now, as far as like, you know, when I was in the Marine Corps, you couldn't tell me shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what you say about me. Like, I'm better than you. I don't care. And it was just that mentality. So I kind of try to like not sound so conceited, but like I'm confident, right? So, but it's those comments, like you said, you know, you take a look at some of those comments and some of those reels for the songs that you thought were going to go super hard and super viral, and this is going to be a TikTok trend, and you know, this, that, and the other. And then you're like, you see some of those comments, and you see some of those people who are, again, bringing that negativity to what you're trying to do, and it eats at you, man. Like, oh, I just put out this single, I worked on it for so long, or this album, and all of a sudden I look on Spotify for artists and I see the first 7 days of streaming and I see like 300 streams for the whole album or something like that. And I'm just like, oh, and you feel so deflated.
Yeah, Miss Betsy Ross says she's the same way. She feels the same way because, like, when she released the book, you know, her book series, the Fight series, and you know, not getting the sales or not getting the feedback and stuff like that, it drives on you, especially if you're putting yourself out there artistically. Because I'm going to say artistically, because whether you're an author, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're a musician, whatever, that's
all
art.
yeah.
Art, yeah, it's all art, and it sucks. And you know, your song "Falling from Grace" says it best. If you don't go out there and you don't do your reels and your clips and your sound bites and stuff like that, then you're gonna trend down. You're not going to trend up. And
or like if you see you don't get as many, you're like, oh, I suck, right?
Yeah.
Like it almost it starts to deflate your confidence.
Yeah.
And that's why like a lot of my friends are like, bro, you should try like Berserk says it to me all the time, and he doesn't mean anything bad by this, but he's like, you should try something more edgy, like say the weird thing, right? Like what you're really thinking, like say something that's controversial. And I'm like, I do have my moments where I want to say something controversial, and I try to do it in kind of like a cryptic way, because unfortunately, another thing that's really sucky about this generation now with social media and everything is cancel culture is a very real thing. So like you say one thing that you believe in your heart is true, and you got a mob of people that are ready to say Theory's canceled and nobody listened to him anymore. And, oh, I used to like you until you said this. And it's like, oh my God, now I just lost 100 people that listen to my music every day, you know, and it just sucks. So like, you kind of have to tread that lightly, but you know, I guess I'm just scared to take that leap because Kanye does it and he wears a KKK outfit to a freaking interview on live, you know, social media, and I mean, granted it's Kanye West and I'm fucking Theory. So it's like, you know, obviously there's a huge gap in like credibility in the industry. Right. But
yeah, but on which way? Hold on. Let's get to the root of this problem. So you can never base anything that the man that I know is Theory does based on anything Kanye does, because Kanye is, of course, Kanye, and he is a musical genius, but you're a fucking U.S. Marine. So that stuff shouldn't enter into you. I understand that everything that we're doing is like personal. I get upset when people don't like what we put out on our podcast because I feel the same way. We're very center of the road. We don't say anything other than Our Hero. We don't say anything too controversial, but brother, like you should not be even letting that noise enter your brain to have you in the same echelon as anything Kanye, because you are a United States Marine
Yeah.
and you're a hip hop artist.
Yeah.
You're already better to me than Kanye West, even though I have the Kanye West essentials here I'm gonna listen to, but I think you're a better person than Kanye West, because that motherfucker's living. He's living in a society, in a world. Yeah, he was a billionaire, dude. He could do whatever they wanted to. Yeah,
it's crazy to me, and like that's one of the things that scares me the most is like also, let's say one of my songs does decide to just randomly go viral one day and I blow up, right? And I'm offered sponsorships and I'm offered this and I'm offered that and record deals, and people are coming hitting my inbox about, let me fly you out to here and let me pay you this, and it's going to drive me nuts. And I feel like that level of fame that he's at, I feel like it really kind of over time took advantage of his mentality, and it just got to him.
It drove him crazy.
Yeah, it drove him nuts, and it drives a lot of people nuts. Like, like with the president of the United States, like you there's a reason why you see them younger in their beginning of the term, and then 4 to 8 years later, they got fucking wrinkles everywhere and gray hairs everywhere, and you're just like, well, no wonder you have the most stressful job. And it's kind of the same thing. Like there's so much that happens in that process. So like with David talking about comparing that to veterans, right? And like, how can we, or Rich, I'm sorry, how can we kind of find that middle ground as far as the veteran community? That is the biggest reason why I personally am in this stream right now, is I feel like a lot of you guys, and I've been on a bunch of y'all's shows already, and so me personally being a veteran and not having my own podcast where I interview people, but I met David at a show, and then from David grew all of you guys as friends that I consider good friends, and brothers and sisters. So it's like, I guess I speak from that outside perspective, where it's like finding your tribe, right? And finding those people who are going to have your back no matter what. And finding those people, like David and his wife Julie came to visit me in the hospital, and I'm a mental basket case at this point because my wife is sedated and intubated for 11 days. And they brought me McDonald's, they brought me 2 chocolate shakes, and they were very supportive. They stayed with me, and David came a couple times and he just talked to me. Some of my other friends that I've known for way longer didn't even come do that. You know what I mean? So I think that the veteran community can do a lot of good for each other with the kind of things that you guys are all doing with your podcast, and putting out that awareness and putting out the know that, hey, if you're a veteran and you've served our country honorably, we have a place for you here where you have people you can talk to, people you can vent to, people you can relate to. So I appreciate what you guys all do as well from that perspective.
Heck yeah. Miss Pippa, how are you, dear?
Hi everyone, sorry I'm late. I'm good,
No,
thank you. I did
you're
marathon
good.
the weekend. That was fun.
So the topic that we're talking about is what Rich put in the group chat. I'll read it here real quick. How you believe a veteran should be seen? Like, who? Number 1 is, who am I? 2, are we truly a tribe? And 3, can we get the extremes of veterans to come together? That's the topic that we're talking about right now at the current moment in time.
Well, I just want to back up what was mentioned earlier. Willis, I see you've got average host, but you grow an above average circle, mate. I want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So how are you, Tim, over there in Australia, brother? You're looking all spiffy.
Things are, well, can't a man dress up without getting questioned? Come on.
Look good, man.
I just thank you. No, I just did. Do you guys have the Salvos over there in the US? Salvation Army?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've just done a fundraising dinner for a breakfast, I should say. The sun is coming up here in Australia. A fundraising breakfast for the Salvo. So that's why I'm above averagely dressed right now.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, usually I'm used to seeing you in your tank top and your,
All right. So, Miss Pippa, what do you think about the topic that we got tonight? What do you think?
it's a really interesting one, really important, and I love what Theory was saying about the challenges of social media now and that council culture and getting judged. I think for me, it's a hard one because just because you're a veteran doesn't mean you're going to get on with everyone else who's a veteran, right? Because we're all people, and we had that when we served. People we just didn't get on with, and like I don't like everyone, and not everyone likes me. That's okay. That's how the world works. But I always think that as people who have gone through extraordinary experiences, that there is a bond that we can all relate to. And understanding, I guess, what happens when you go through those experiences as well, from the psychological, the physiological, point of view, that is a shared experience that we're always going to have. And so it's finding, I guess, you said it right, finding the middle ground, isn't it, of supporting each other because it's the right thing to do and we have that shared lived experience, but also not tolerating bad behaviors just because we've got a lived experience. Because we still have to be held accountable, and we held ourselves accountable when we served. We have to hold ourselves accountable even after we've finished serving, and service doesn't give you an excuse to be an absolute dickhead. Sometimes it gives you like a bit of a pass, like on a bad night, but not as a way of living, and it's trying to. And I think again, having this community, like having this round table, having things like this, are the way to help navigate some of those challenges. Because when you're on your own, and again, Theory, you're talking about when I joined, the thoughts that go through your mind, we are so self-critical. We see our worst flaws. We see our every mistake as the biggest mistake in the world. When we come into a group like this, though, we can rationalize it. We can remind ourselves of we are more than the sum of our parts, and help each other to keep moving forward. And that for me is what this experience is about, and what being a veteran is about is moving forward as a shared community, I guess.
Yeah. So there's a Wiseman River on TikTok says, I think that it's just that people are people, but the groups that can relate and who cannot relate. I guess that's a good way of and toleration conducting with the ethos. So what I think he's meaning by that is, like, people are people, right? Everybody's going to have their own difference of opinion, and then you get these groups like us. We're a group of people. We're very like-minded, but we each have our own different political views. We each have our own religion views and stuff like that. But we can come together and create a community because we're very like-minded what we do, and then we can get heated. We can have a heated conversation. But guess what? As soon as that conversation is over, we're going back to being friends because we know who each other we are. That's what I love about the community that we have built here within TikTok, or not TikTok, but within the podcast community that we've built. And then, we brought in Mr. Tim Thomas, we brought in Pippa, and we brought in all these other people into it that are not here tonight, but eventually they'll be back. And, it's crazy, and I think we could be a tribe, but it's all about being a tribe, and then it's like being a family. You're going to get peed off at your brother, you're going to get peed off at your sister, your mom, your dad, whoever. But guess what? You still love them because they're your family. It's family that you choose. So
it's better than getting peed on.
True. And if you can't, take somebody's difference of opinion and run with it and be okay with their difference in opinion, then you need to bounce and move on to a different group that's more like-minded to you are. But I think if you have a strong core group, and then you got your core group, and then you expand, as long as your core group stays strong, then the community will work, your tribe will work. So,
but that's the beautiful thing about it, is like it's like a almost like an infectious thing, right? Like one person like this, let's say the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people on here right now have this as the main group, and then those 9 people have the people in the comments who are listening and watching, and then those people will share something to their world, and then those people are. It's just going to continue. It's going to continue to expand, and that's why that's how I ended up being part of this group as well. So it's like there's, in my mind, there's tens of thousands of other veterans that are probably in the same kind of boat and have the same mentalities that we have, and just need to know that we're here, right? So to continue to grow as a platform for what you guys are doing is going to eventually, at some point, whether it catches on or not, you're still doing the legwork to get other veterans to recognize that there are people that they can, come to and be a part of that tribe. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it.
Theory, I love what you're talking about there, because that's a metric that's not always measured on the spreadsheet. And, we all know millions of dollars get spent on veteran mental health, mental health in general, but I believe it's water off a duck's back if you don't break the isolation first.
Yeah.
Because the pain you're in, it doesn't matter if it's physical or emotional, it'll get to a certain duration or intensity where it transforms without even the person knowing it. It happened to me without me knowing it. It was just like I had continually two fingers up to the outside world,
Mm-hmm.
And it was everyone else's fault, right? But that was me being isolated. So they could have poured in all the resources they needed until you get the isolation broken. That's when people can crack open, the rocks around the heart dissolve. You can actually feel again. A lot of my addictions to substances was because I wanted to feel something, and so when I started my own sort of programs for veterans, we focused on two things, one of which you just spoke of there, breaking the isolation, and how does that happen? Do you need an expensive event, millions of dollars? No, people in this room, the experience that we've been given gives us the ability, the qualification to break the isolation of all the other veterans out there.
Yeah.
And I found it's as simple as someone else saying certain words that you haven't been able to say. And then when you hear someone else say those words, that the thing that you're always experiencing, it's really interesting. Most veterans do this. Watch. They go, their jaw kind of pops open, and then they say things like, fuck, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the starting point. That is the absolute starting point. And this is what everyone can do for each other. This is the power we have,
And it's like, it doesn't even, like you said, it doesn't have to be at some big, huge, extravagant event or spend a whole bunch of money. I mean, I met David Willis at a free hip hop show that I performed at for raising awareness on veteran suicide.
Yep.
So
yeah,
from
we're all very casual here. I mean, Rich probably hasn't even had a shower this morning.
Yeah.
I'm half in my pajamas.
Yeah.
There you go.
but just that just goes to show, like, you do something, even something that simple, right? Where and I don't even think we had more than 50 people that came to that show.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was a small event, but even those tiny little movements can spark a fire, and then it spreads, right? And it introduced me to Rich and to Travis and to Carolee and Ty, and Ty and Triple Threat Vets podcast was the most recent one that I've been on.
Can anyone else?
Can you hear me?
I got you.
Yep.
Okay.
I got you. Sorry, I got you now. You
Oh, no, you're
faded
good,
out
you're
for
good.
a second.
Just time zones, Tim. Time zones.
Yeah.
No comms.
No, that's
no
his
comms,
karma.
no bombs.
That's his karma
We're
for
24
this,
hours
right?
ahead of you, Rich, right? All right.
But yeah, like it's true, that thing spreads. And like I was saying, Ty and Matt and Al, those guys on Triple Threat Vets podcast was the last podcast that I was on. And just from that podcast, like, you wouldn't believe some of the engagement that I got from friends of mine who, like, there was a guy that I served with when I was in the Marine Corps. His name's Chris Springer, and he knows of you guys. And he was like, yo, you were on Triple Threat Vets podcast? I've been following them for a while, dude. Like, I didn't even know you were doing interviews like that. Let me do an interview with you. And, we got something set up. So it's like the smallest things. And the thing that I love about what I do with music is kind of like what Tim was saying, that veterans, just like their jaw will drop and be like, I thought I was the only one. So it's like, that's why I try to put that kind of energy in my music, where it's like, you're not alone in feeling that way. You're not alone in having that really bad thought, you know, because I was there at one point. And, you know, that thought where today's going to be it. I'm done. I don't want to be here no more. And people are like, oh my God, like this guy is literally saying right now and experiencing right now what I'm going through currently. And that song or that album or that line that I said might have resonated with somebody so much that it may have saved their life potentially. So I'm doing something through music, but as Ty was saying earlier, I'm a Marine. So it's like, first and foremost, that is the one thing that I'm most proud of in the world. So it's like, how can I use my gift doing music and making music and spreading awareness for certain issues? How can I do that and at the same time help the veteran community, which is falling from grace? That's kind of it. I tied that in with that. And I've gotten a ton of great feedback from it, and you'll never know who hears it and whose life you may save one day, or you never know who you might help. And if I help even one person from making a bad decision that day, then I consider myself blessed to be able to have done that.
Travis, let's hear from the Godfather. Let's hear from Travis.
About what? What would you like to know?
Oh my God. About what?
Our topic, man. What you been doing? Crocheting down there?
No, I'm not crocheting actually. So I don't know much, but what I know in my heart and what I've experienced is, if you focus on what you can control, I can't control what someone thinks about my show, me as a person, how I sound, how I look. I've had people say, that was great. And some people say, you're just a fake. I can't control what they do. I have no purview or mitten to their lives to make them see my way. So the only person I can control is me and what I do, right? And so, and some of you have heard me say this before, I really believe two things. If you identify with your purpose, that is to say that if you understand what you're doing and the why behind it and lean into that, you will never be wrong. Some people may not like you. I don't care. Some people may love you. I really don't care. But at the end of the day, you can lay your head on the pillow and know that you achieved your purpose for that day and for that purpose, right? So that to me is first and foremost. The second thing is, if somebody is, and you can criticize, you can call for criticism, like, hey man, you might want to check your gain on your mixer because you're coming in hot, or why don't you back off the profanity a little bit on your show? That's one thing. But if someone is trying to tear you down and chip at you and what you're doing because their lack of self-worth, or their wallowing in the pigpen of self-loathing mediocrity, that's their business. Surround yourself with people who believe in you. And you know what? You all kind of know this. The number of people that truly believe in you are very, very small compared to people who are going to hate on you. So it doesn't matter, what you do. It could be crocheting a blanket. It could be going down to the Legion and serving breakfast on a Saturday morning. It could be going to a hospital and playing guitar for the little old ladies there. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter, who is hearing it. As long as you're being authentic to yourself and trying to impact and make change for the right reason, you're going to feel fulfilled. You're going to have a purpose-filled life, and then other people in your area will resonate with you and come together. And you've got to treasure those people. So that's kind of like my 2 cents at the very high level Cliff Notes area. And I think that's why this group is so important, because people get a place to come together and feel bonded with each other. So that's kind of how I feel about that, David.
Awesome.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that one too. And
yeah, I think you did too.
Theory, you just put something in the chat there about finding your why. During my transition out, I thought it was a failure as my transition, my 365 days of not working, sitting home, drinking beer with my dogs. I read 2 books, What Color is Your Parachute? Richard Bowles, and Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Those 2 books offered me great advice. They offered me great insight on what to do with my hands after I got out. And then I read another book, Tribe, on Homecoming and Belonging by Sebastian Junger. That book there brought me back into Afghanistan and all the things I saw there as the tribal culture, and coming back to this world and seeing how we now as veterans, we are still tribal. If me and Ty go into a bar and we're Army guys, we're going to hang out together because we're Army guys automatically, especially 101st dudes. We're going to sit there and talk together. Willis Theory, too, are going to hug each other and eat crayons together and have a good time because the Marines, that's what you do. But we all can come together because there's one other thing we all did. We all raised our right hand at MEPS. We all said we'll lay our life on the line for the dude to my right, the lady to my left, and we'll do it. So that tribe has to stay tight. It may not be the same tightness that you had when you were in a squad or a team, but you still have that cohesion like we have right here. And for you, Theory, as you going through your hip hop journey, your Venn diagram is awesome because you have veteran, Marine, hip hop in the center. Everything's going to swing and hit in the middle. Whatever's hitting in the middle, that's the people you want right there. Outliers, let them go.
Your MPI, your main point of impact.
Yeah. Yeah. And Travis kind of hit the nail on the head with that too, with,
God, I love
I
using
can't
military
control-
talk in a normal conversation. You feel like people look at you like you're a goddamn alien when you don't you have DPCU on the back of the MC quad?
Yeah.
I'm like, "Ah."
I
just had to
break that
drop
down
that in
so
there.
many times. But no, like you can't control what people think of you or what people say about you. They might act, real nice to your face and then go behind your back and talk the most trash to you. But something else that I heard that kind of reminded me of a saying in the music industry, especially, if you don't have haters, then you're doing it wrong, right? So if the thing that was a hard pill for me to swallow and kind of what got me in that mindset of, okay, now I can kind of step back out of this, I guess, mental panic that I had every time it didn't work out the way I wanted it to with a song or an album or whatever the case may be, and kind of just take a step back, is because people want to hate and drag you down because they're upset that you're doing something that they can't or refuse to do. So it's like, okay, I see this person having a great time, making good music. He's getting a lot of good feedback. I'm going to ruin that for him because I had a shitty day, or because I can't rap as good as you, or I'm not a Marine. I didn't join the military and write a blank check to Uncle Sam saying I'm willing to lay my life down if I need to. Like, I didn't do all these things that this person did. So I'm going to bring him down to my level. Right. And that's an awful thing that happens, but it's very real. Right.
Yeah.
So kind of going along what Travis was saying with that mentality of just kind of, you have to step back and realize that if you're being talked about, whether it be positive or negative, because negative publicity is still good, is still publicity. Right. So it's like, if you're being talked about in a negative way, great. If you're being talked about in a positive way, great. Even better. Right. But you can't control it. So why get upset about it?
So
and it took me a while to get that.
There's a few comments here on TikTok that I want to answer, but we also have a special guest waiting, and so we're going to bring him up in just 1 second. But Wiseman River says, learning to just let go and finding your peace, everything else will fall into place. So if we as veterans, we can learn just to let go and not focus on the negatives, but only focus on the positives. It'll everything will fall into place. Because I tell my wife all the time, I don't know if she's still watching, but I'm like, babe, it's in his hands. Let him just guide us. Just forget about worrying about money. Forget about worrying about what our kids are going to be doing and stuff like that. He's got it. He's in control. Just let go and everything will go. Another comment, it's okay to be embarrassed, but never okay to quit. So you can get embarrassed, just don't quit. So that's another good comment. And man, there's so many good comments going through on TikTok right now. So the guy we got coming up, he's down in chat right now. His name's Justin Miller, right? He's co-founder of Objective Zero Foundation. I want him to come up and talk about Objective Zero and what it is and what it does. So he's on cloud 9 right now because he's got some feedback from today. So let's bring up Mr. Justin Miller. Justin, welcome, sir.
Hey, appreciate you. Good evening,
So,
everybody. How you doing?
Hey, hey.
What's up, Justin?
Do me a favor, brother, and introduce yourself real quick. Just who you are, your military background, real quick, if you don't mind.
All right. Yeah, I'm Justin Miller. I was 11 and a half years infantry in the Army. I got 27 months in combat. Was medically retired in 2014. At that time, I thought that I did the hardest part, of my life until I got out and trying to reacclimate into the civilian world was a lot harder than I expected. I no longer had the brotherhood around me that could see me dragging first thing in the morning and realize that I was struggling and be able to relate. Now I'm surrounded by people that when they hear my stories, they look at me like I'm crazy, and ask what type of movies I've been watching because they've never heard that one. And I basically shut down. When I needed somebody to talk to would be in the middle of the night from waking up with nightmares, afraid to go back to sleep. And in my head, I felt that I was a burden. I'm like, man, all the people that I could relate to or that could relate to my situation right now need to be up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't want to bother them. And we started doing a lot of research and realized that when most veterans decide to check out, that they do it within the first 5 minutes, and that a lot of veterans were lacking trust, so they were afraid to reach out. So we decided to eliminate kind of dividing with the VA and everything, decided to jump on and help alleviate some of the burden they were dealing with. And we created the Objective Zero app. It is ran by volunteers. It's ran by veterans, service members, family members, people who actually give a shit, that aren't there for a paycheck, but they're there because they want to support us and they want to actually show their appreciation instead of just saying, hey, thank you for your service. The app allows instant and anonymous connection in a time of need by a touch of a button via voice, video, or text. We saw the struggle with the Veterans Crisis Line and saw that a third of them were being dropped or sent to voicemail. We realized that a lot of people were struggling with military SA, and we thought, if somebody had been assaulted and they reach out to the crisis hotline and they get somebody who is of the same sex that assaulted them, that the odds of them actually opening up and reaching out for help were pretty slim, that they were more than likely to crawl into a hole and isolate more and get, fall into a darker place. We realized that the person reaching out for help is all that matters. So we made it so they could customize, filter out the network, whether they want to talk to a male or a female, whether they want to talk to somebody who Army, Marines, whether they were infantry, served in Iraq or Afghanistan, that the more narrowed and more filtered that the user could get, the more likely there'd be that instant camaraderie where they would feel comfortable to be able to talk to somebody who's walked, talked, agreed, and posted the same things. So the app has now been live. We went live Christmas of 2017, and we're creeping up on 30,000 users. It's been used every single day since we released it.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
That's incredible.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so I met Justin off of TikTok, and when we were talking on the phone, he was in the airport getting ready to head to take care of some personal stuff, and I was like, "Hey, get back in touch with me." And things happened, and we both got busy with things we were doing, and then today I was in a live, and Doc James says, "Hey, meet this guy," and I was like, "I know who he is." Well, at first I didn't. I was like, I had to refresh me, and then I was like, "Oh, I know exactly who this guy is." And then I was talking to him, like, "Hey, we're going to be doing the Tip of the Spear tonight," and then he jumped in on TikTok, and I was like, "Hey, you want to come on talk about Objective Zero?" Because it's working, and it's something. If you're not comfortable with dialing 988*1 for veterans, this is an alternative to that, and it's been proven to work. I mean, it's successful. It's been around since 2017, and like he said, you can break it down. Like I forget who was on the TikTok live earlier that messaged in, and then they were inundated with people reaching out to that person right away.
It was Janie or Janie or something like that. I forget her name, but she's a gold or a Green Star mom. She lost her son to
Janae,
the 22, and she while we were on the live, she downloaded the app and was like, let me check this out and see how real it actually is. And she reached out, and within less than a minute, she had people responding to her, checking on her, making sure she was good.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Janae is a Green Star mom. Her son was a Marine, and unfortunately, he lost his battle. And she's got a foundation for it. And literally, she was in there. She downloaded the app, and then she messaged in there, and people just started inundating her with, hey, are you okay? And hey, let's chat and stuff like that. So it works. It's really, really amazing. I've been checking on it for a while now, and it was just like, hey, let's get you up here on the show to talk about it right now. I am going to have Justin on Homefront Sit Rep just so we can talk about this by itself. So if you guys want to have Justin on your shows as well to come on and talk about the app as well, I'm sure Justin will be more than willing to come on and spread awareness for an app that works. It's something. See, Ty's got it right there. Look, let's make Ty. You want to go full screen so you can show that, Ty? Let me find you. Yeah, there you go. He's downloading it right now. So yeah, you can get it on Google Play or Apple. You can download it. It's Objective Zero on there, so go check it out. Or you can go to the website, which is scrolling across the bottom of the screen, which is objectivezero.org. So go check it out for sure. It's an excellent app. So Justin, let me ask you a question. So you've heard our topic that we've had tonight, right? So what do you think about the topic, and what is your ideal on who you want to be seen as a veteran? Is there such thing as a tribe, and then can we bring all of the extreme veterans together? Because you got your veterans out there that don't want to have anything to do with any other veterans. Can we get all of them together? Can we bring everybody together, or is it just stay with our tribe and expand from there?
I think that. Well, I think that we all have like our niche. We all have our little our tribe, like you're saying. Is it possible for all of us to come together? I think it has a lot to do where there's too many Indians, there are too many chiefs and not enough Indians. I believe that some of the leaders,
the Indians do the work.
Yeah, I think that we can bring some of the key people of each group together, and I think together as a whole we can definitely make a difference. But I always think that no matter what, you're gonna have your people that want to be in charge. They want to be the center of attention. That they're always going to feed off of the drama and not want everybody to achieve or to be successful. Like when we created Objective Zero, one of our biggest people that was causing problems was a veteran, and they was bashing us and telling people that we should be arrested for stealing people's money, that we should be ashamed of ourselves for taking advantage of the veteran community, saying that we're going to create something that if it could have been created, it would have been done years ago. And he was one of our own. Like I reached out to him and was like, man, what's the deal? Like, why are you not? Well, you guys think that you have the brains and the heart to be able to do this, but believe me, if it could have been done, there's been many people that have tried this prior to you. And like, you know, you just got to realize that everybody has a different perspective. Everybody has a different vision. And the thing that made us so successful is the fact that we didn't have a brick and mortar, you know, we didn't have bills, we didn't have to pay utilities or anything like that. And that's where most of previous attempts have failed at. But I definitely think that as a tribe in general, I think we can make a major difference. I just don't think that everybody has the right mentality, the right tact, and the right leadership skills to be able to coexist when it comes to certain people.
Yeah, it's like somebody said, you just gotta let go of the negatives and move on with the positives, and not worry about it, because I know within the TikTok community for sure, there's a lot of negative, a lot of naysayers out there. You know, here I am. I'm on there just talking about my podcast and just bringing people in and talking, right? And then you got people come, oh, you're stolen valor, you're stolen this or whatever, and it's like, no, bro, I'm me, who I am. You know, I am a Marine Corps veteran. That's what I tell them. You know, and I got my DD-214 on my phone, so if anybody ever wants to see it, I can just pull it up. You know, and be like, here's my DD-214s. I got 2 of them. So, you know, it's just one of those things. You just gotta. The way I look at it, it's in his hands. The man upstairs, he's leading the way. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not meant to be, then we'll figure something else out. But I can tell you right now, with the people that I've surrounded myself with Theory, Rich, Ty, Pippa, JJ, Travis, Carol Lee, Tim, Tab, and all the rest of them that come on the tip of the spear, you know, we're all very like-minded. And I know if I step out of line, Theory's going to drive to my house. He's going to beat me over the head with a frying pan, or Rich, or Ty, or JJ, any one of these guys. If I step out of line, they're going to say, hey, you stepped out of line, you're wrong. And the way I look at it, as long as I stay true to who I am and be humble, then that's where it needs to stay. I don't need to do anything other than that. So, JJ,
And like-
you've been quiet.
I am being quiet. You know, I don't want to interrupt anybody else, and everyone has a lot of really, really good things to say. And I think this whole idea of us being a tribe it's important for us to put our best selves out there and allow the ones that are ready to come forward and try to put a message out there to where the ones that are not comfortable yet to come forward and become part of this tribe. You know, eventually maybe they will, maybe they won't, but if we're letting them know that it's a safe place, that you know, we're just trying to be better together, that I hope they do. And as far as the social media thing, I think that it's rough. I agree with that 110%. I don't know if I always like going out there and putting my business out in a lot of these panels that are going on TikTok. But I do like these panels that when you put them together, Willis, on here, I think that the tip of the spear, we have a lot of very important conversations, and I'm glad to see that it's growing and that there are a lot of people that are interested in it, because I do think we could have more togetherness. I do think as a military community, a veteran community, we are already a tribe. I don't think that any of us here, especially, or most veterans, when somebody else says, I'm struggling, I do not think we'll look at them and say, take a hike. I don't want anything to do with you. I think we're going to try to do what we can to help them out.
Yeah. Miss Carol Lee, you've been awful quiet tonight, my friend.
I've just been listening, and you know, for my channel, I get people veterans that'll say they don't, you know, they've never been to combat, and they really don't think that they have any kind of a story to tell because they can't compare with those people who have been. And, you know, I have to remind them that, one, everybody has a story. It's, you know, that's up to them how they want to tell it. But two, the majority, I mean, what is it? Only 18% have ever been to combat? You know, so come on now. And that they're just as vital their story to hear, is just as important as somebody who has been deployed overseas somewhere in the middle of combat. So um, it's just a matter of getting them to really believe that they're a part of that whole veteran community. Because I think a lot of times they don't believe that they are, simply for the fact that they did not, see combat.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, with the way that, a lot of us, I can't speak for every branch. I can only assume for other branches this is how it was. But for the Marine Corps, I know that, suck it up is kind of like a thing that's instilled in you, like from boot camp, right? Like, oh, your tooth hurts, oh, suck it up. Oh, your head hurts, suck it up. Here's some Motrin, drink some water. Oh, you broke your wrist, here's a boot on your leg, suck it up. Like the most ridiculous stuff, right? So it's like with not having, like, for example, I had a buddy of mine that was from my Poolee station, from my recruiting station. We went to boot camp together, and he ended up almost, like, he tried to, like, remove himself from life during boot camp by using his boot strings on the edge of his rack, because he was so tired of getting picked on by the drill instructors, and they were like drilling into this kid and like just making his whole life just awful. And he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they beat him down mentally to just make him feel like the biggest piece of garbage. And he really started to believe it. So when we had first heard about that and experienced it, because we ended up seeing him not in the squad bay anymore. So we were like, what happened to this guy? And the drill instructors finally told us what happened. And, of course, you got those guys who were laughing like, what a pussy. And it's like, okay, well, am I guilty of feeling some type of way about, like, that's weakness? Yes, I did at that time feel like that. But at the same time, I also empathized with that person, because I've always just been a very empathetic person my whole life. I've been very compassionate. I've been very kind. I'm easy to forgive people. I'm a sucker for giving second, third, fourth, fifth chances. And so it's like, I kind of had to check myself, because not everybody has that same mentality that we have, right? So whether you're military or not, you kind of have to check yourself in that sense. So whether you've been to combat as a veteran or not doesn't necessarily mean, like Carolee was saying, doesn't necessarily mean you didn't have a difficult time throughout your service. Whether you served 5 years like I did, 4 years like David did, or for one of his enlistments, or whether you served 25 years. You may have had those moments in the military where you were really tried and tested, mentally, physically, all of the above. So I think it's very important when you have these groups, right? Because not everybody is going to have that same kind of thought process, right? Like what did David say? Or he posted Pippa's statement. Not everyone chooses to engage, but that's not a mindset everyone has. With this group, yes, that does apply for this, right? We all choose to engage with each other, give our points of view, and we feed off of that, and we are able to have that conversation, right? Stupid dog. So we're able to engage, but also, like David was saying, we might have a disagreement, but at the end of the podcast, after we stop going live, we're in the waiting room, and it's on video still, and we're like, all right, this is why I said this, this is why I said this, and we meet in the middle, and everybody's friends again. But not everybody does have that mentality, like Pippa was saying, right? Like you have those people in the military who were also followers. So they waited for somebody to step up. They waited for somebody to take that first step. And then they felt comfortable enough to be like, okay, I've looked up to this person, or I see something admirable in this person, and I've seen them take that step. So now I feel comfortable to take that step. So even though they may not have the mindset to engage and speak up, they may be waiting for you to approach them and say, hey, this is what's going on with this group of people. Why don't you come show your face on the podcast one of these days. Oh, you served in Afghanistan. I'd love to have you on my podcast and just talk about your time in service. Something as simple as that. They may not be the ones to approach you, but they may be waiting for somebody to make that first step.
Yeah, I reach out to those even who are, supply or comms, and, that have not even, like I said, stepped across the ocean and anywhere. And because they're so integral in being able to provide the necessary resources for those who are deployed overseas. And they tend to forget that. And not only that, I think that a lot of them have friends that had deployed and didn't come back. And they have those who are here and didn't deploy themselves have survivor's guilt. And I think that that's something that they don't care to recognize, or they don't believe it is true necessarily. So
I think there's two things that both Carolee and Teresa, which triggers a thought with me. One is, so I always wanted to serve an operational tour. I felt for me personally, it validated my military experience. And that was all about me and how I was thinking. But I've never judged anyone else who hasn't. It doesn't occur to me to judge that. That was something that I really, really wanted to do. The second thing is, recently, my dad's not been very well. Unfortunately, he had encephalitis. And my dad served in the Navy, but he just missed the Falklands War. But a lot of people he knew went to the Falklands and died, unfortunately. And he definitely still has survivor's guilt, like, to this day. And that really came out during his illness, because he was kind of reliving and being back in the UK as opposed to down in the Falklands. And it's, this is 40 odd years later. And you just can't predict the mental toll that serving or not serving operationally, but still being in the military, can take on you because of that fact, because of people that you've lost, or the fact that you couldn't go, it wasn't your time, or you just missed the draft. And again, having a place where you can acknowledge that and go, it's okay, because we all have different lived experiences in this world, and each one plays a part to the bigger piece. Right. But it's just reminding people of that fact is so important.
Well, let's acknowledge that a little bit too. I mean, just because you didn't go to combat or serve downrange, it doesn't mean that the military is not a very tough lifestyle to live. I mean, let's take these people that are married, for example. How often does the military train? How often do you leave your spouse to be a single parent? I mean, those situations alone cause problems that the typical civilian will never ever see. And coming home late, going to sleep, and then getting back up bright and early in the morning to go do PT again. I mean, civilians don't do that. I mean, the lifestyle that a service member lives while they're on active duty, I'm just going to be quite honest with you, it's ridiculous. And the civilian population, they don't even understand what that means. And so for veterans, there's more than one reason to come together. You don't have to be a combat vet to have a shitty time in service. As a matter of fact, you could have had a really, really tough time while you were serving and never deployed at all. So we need to acknowledge that there's a lifestyle thing that goes along with the struggles of the military, not necessarily just serving in combat.
Yeah, JJ, there's some research that backs that up quite nicely, because they found that trauma really just locks into place what you already know. And what do we know? We know the military lifestyle. Okay. Yeah. We were all sort of broken down to a point, built up in a certain way so that we can move in a synchronous mass. And that doesn't happen by accident, So we've got this part of us that has been developed. We can move as a synchronous mass. So when we get out into a world that doesn't work in that same synchronicity, that fucks with us on a really big level. And how many guys, when you just kick in without knowing it, you kick into your military sort of speak, and then people are looking at you like you're a goddamn alien. You don't get invited back to, social, events. getting completely naked is apparently a bad thing to do at social events.
I think that's a Tim thing. I don't think that's the rest of us.
No, I definitely, I've gotten
Come on.
naked for money in the civilian world, and I will attest to that.
I think we might be going off the rails. I don't know.
Oh, somebody cue the music. I mean, I think something coming on here.
Yeah.
Ty's going
Title
crazy
here.
over there.
If you don't see my picture for a second on this stream, there's a
They're
reason.
basically saying it's that regimentation that causes the isolation. That's the thing. So it doesn't matter if you've deployed or not. All a deployment will do is lock into place this regimented mind space.
Yeah.
Okay. Or trauma, that'll lock your neural pathways into this is the way things are and I can't change. And so yes, the trauma needs to be dealt with, but it's not that. It's the isolation someone feels where they go from synchronous mass, everyone's working well, to a place that the world's not the same. And our superpower as military people is the loyalty we show to others. When you've got my back and I've got yours, there's nothing we can't handle. But often veterans will show that loyalty on civilian street and they get that betrayed. And that's a hell of a kick in the guts. Like that's our superpower now used to super hurt us, and it's a hard thing to sort of have something that really worked for you. Your sense of strength now is your sense of, oh shit, I can't use that anymore.
Yeah.
Who do I trust?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the whole adapt and overcome thing, right? That they teach you in the military. They teach you to adapt and overcome whatever is in front of you. And, that can also be used negatively against you because there's so many different things that happen in life that you have to adapt to that might be foreign to you. And that can mess with your mentality. That can mess with your mental health. And like with PTSD, like people associate, I see it so many times that, people associate PTSD with, oh, he's seen some shit. Like he must have shot somebody on a deployment because he's a Marine, right? So like the civilians, they don't understand, right? So, they didn't live that life. They just have this Call of Duty fantasy or like this Saving Private Ryan or this Black Hawk Down kind of fantasy. And they think that, I'm a Marine, I have PTSD. It must be because I saw combat. And, PTSD doesn't have to come from seeing combat. PTSD could come from a sexual assault.
Well, it could also just come from transition.
Yeah, I was just going to say it could just as easily come from transition back to the civilian world because you like Justin was saying, you don't have that same kind of connection with those people when you transition that automatically know that something's wrong with you or that automatically know something's bothering you or you're having a tough day and because they see you 16 17 hours out of the day.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to really boil it down to where somebody will understand that because they didn't live that lifestyle. So you can't really explain it to them because they'll never be able to feel how that felt. So like I've met plenty of military personnel who've had PTSD and never seen a day of combat in their life. There's so many things that it can stem from. And it's groups like this or groups like, all the different podcasts and all the different social media, influencers that are veterans that are doing something for the veteran community, trying to spread awareness for something. Justin's app is a perfect example of that, right? Like keeping that connection open and knowing that you have somebody, whether you deployed or not, whether you are Marine, Army, Coast Guard, Space Force, doesn't matter. You have you have somebody. Maybe Space Force was a bad example.
No. So there's a lady on TikTok. Her name is Kimberly_engineer. She started out in the Marines, then she went to the Air Force, and then she got told, "Hey, you're going to be Space Force." So
they can tell you that you're going to go be Space Force.
Yes. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. So she started out as a Marine. She started out as a Marine, went to Air Force, and then when Space Force came about, they're like, "Hey, we're taking you and we're putting you in the Space Force." So
I'd be livid.
But no, so she's uber smart, and she does satellite something. I forget something with satellites.
a
So-
way cooler job than probably all of us have done. Like
Yeah.
in all actuality, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Travis,
Although
you've
I'd
been,
just be mindful of using the term Uber smart. I haven't met too many smart Uber drivers. Just saying it, you know.
Travis, what have you been contemplating up there, brother? I see your wheels turning.
Well, I think what we're seeing here is what we talked about before, which is the next phase of veterans advocacy. This it's been this constant thing for the last 10 years of awareness, and now I think, if you will, the wheat is separating from the chaff. The cream is rising to the top in a way that there's a segment of the veteran community that wants to do something. We're tired of being on the sidelines, passive, being told we're broken, being told we're not to snuff, being told that we have problems that only, hey, take a pill, hey, do this, hey, do that. We want to, for lack of a better term, ladies and gentlemen, get back in the fight. We are not, because by virtue of our military service, and military moms too, because my mom was in the fight for me. We want to take the fight to the enemy, and we can't really see what this enemy is in regards to PTSD. We all don't want to bury another one of our brothers or sisters. And when someone, and I've gotten the whole thing as a hawker, well, you didn't deploy, you didn't go and serve in combat, you aren't, anything. But I'm like, well, I didn't do all that, but I buried 4 Marines in 2.5 years of being a hawker. And, there were parts of our job that were very dangerous, and if you didn't respect the gear, you can get killed. Or it was by the time the helicopter got to you from Yuma Regional, you were dead. So I really hate that, because talking on my show to several people who have not deployed, they train like they were going to. A perfect example of that is Commander Roush, who was operating a boomer during the Cold War. And he never fired a torpedo in aggression toward the enemy, but make no mistake, they were ready to do so. And I think that's the thing, back to Carol Lee's point, is, we may not have served in combat. Some of us, I didn't, but we were ready to. We trained like we were. And so, again, I think we're at a point where we want to do something. I think this is why these groups are gaining more and more power, because we don't want to be on the sidelines. We don't want to have somebody tell us you're broken. No, mofo. We're not broken. We might have some battle damage for sure, but we can still be in this fight, and we're coming for you. And I think if we embrace that power within ourselves, we will get the change that we want.
Well put.
Well said, Morgan Freeman. I love it. I love it.
Well, and
Yes.
let's take that to the next level too. I do have 3 deployments, but a lot of times what would happen is if somebody goes home from a deployment before we actually went to the combat zone, or they had to stay back for whatever reason, there's a lot of issues that go along with that too. Not only that, but what Tim was bringing up earlier about the military culture, and what Ty brought up earlier about the op tempo that we deal with while we're serving in the military. It's the fact that we all work together. We serve as a team. We look out to look out for those two on our right and our left, and then we work well. We have to work really, really fast on a regular basis. I mean, that puts us in a different mentality. So don't ever discount somebody for not having combat service. And don't discount somebody for having a different type of combat service than the combat service that you had, because your experience is not their experience, and their experience is not the next person's experience. To sum it all up, we can keep on going down this rabbit hole, but we just need to have these judgment-free conversations to make sure that these people are willing to come in and not feel like they're being attacked.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And, there's a lot of okay, so my first 4 years, right, were before 9/11. My PTS, a lot of my PTS stems from my deployment to Haiti. The stuff that I seen there as an 18-year-old fresh out of the United States, going to a third world country and not being able to defend the people that had the tires that were burning on them while they were screaming, or the females that were getting drugged behind a vehicle with comm wire wrapped around their neck, or the guys coming up to the front gate with their hands chopped off and blood just spurting everywhere. We couldn't do anything. We were told, don't interfere. That's their culture. You can't interfere, right? I get out right before 9/11 happened. 9/11 happens. I'm infantry. Guess what? I'm going back. So I'm going back, and I served until 2004, and that survivor's guilt of, hey, my brothers that I served with the first 4 years that went over that didn't come home. That's immensely, like, it just amplified. So survivor's guilt, whether you served in the military, didn't deploy to a combat zone, your brothers and sisters that didn't come home, or you go over there and you leave before the stuff hits the fan. Yes, the survivor's guilt is friggin' crazy. So don't judge people because of their service. Judge them by what they did while they were in the service. Yes, we all signed our name on that dotted line. Pippa did in the UK. Tim did in Australia. Rest of us was here in America. We all signed our name on that line to serve our country. And we have to be better as humans to not judge people. Yes, we all judge. Everybody judges. But you can't just judge to the point where you're like, well, screw that person. He didn't serve. He's not, he's a weekend warrior or whatever. Not. No. You just gotta keep pushing on and be the better human.
I feel like you got to set the example, right? Like and as the top 2%, that people in the military are, nobody really kind of understands the courage that it really takes, no matter what your job is in the military, the courage that it takes to take your oath of enlistment and, move away from your family. Like, I know when I left to boot camp, I was 22 and I had never been away from home for a holiday before in my life. And my family is very, 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 very tight knit. And I was in boot camp for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And it was my first time away from home at 22. And I was really distraught by that. Like that really kind of messed with me, instead of, being at home with my family, drinking hot cocoa and opening presents and having this loving kind of environment, I'm getting screamed at by a, 220-pound dude in a Smokey Bear hat. And it's not fun for me. Right. So, with all of that stuff, most people are not going to understand the courage that it takes to just sign up, right? To be ripped away from your family and your loved ones, and to possibly miss your child's birth because you had to go on a deployment, or to go to a part of the world maybe that you never wanted to go see, or you never thought you'd go see. You're in another country. You have to abide by their lifestyle and their culture. And it's just a crazy experience. And I think that as military members who have been through that, being veterans, active duty, not so much, because they're still kind of living in that scene. But as veterans who have been through it before and kind of know the ins and outs of what it takes when you're active duty transitioning back to civilian and you've adapted, I think it's up to us to set the example for those veterans who are either on the verge of transitioning to civilian life, or who are also going to be already transitioned and just kind of lost in the sauce, right?
So I do want to bring up one thing. You're absolutely right. But one thing that I'd like us to all remember is, and we have one in the room, is there's a lot of us veterans who, if a civilian wants to come into our circle, offer to help us out or just socialize with us or ask us about our experience, they're instantly cast out or told, no way, you're not cool enough, or something to that effect, sometimes not so nice.
You wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
Wouldn't understand, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, we can't expect civilians who outnumber us to help us if we don't bridge that gap and let them see what's on the inside. Because there's some civilians out there who really do care about those who serve. And I'm not saying this group does it, but I've seen several times where, a civilian shows up at one of our veterans events. No one talks to them. No one welcomes them. They turn their nose at them because, well, you didn't run a PFT or you can't do push-ups. Well, they pay taxes. They vote. They bring their children. So, right along there with veterans, we have to make sure that if a civilian says, thank you for your service, you don't have to get freaked out about it. Just say, hey, you know what? Thank you for being a great American. And get these people on our side because, look, it was tried 2 years ago where they tried to gut the VA. They floated the idea of gutting the VA, and it's not off the table. So, and we're going to need civilians to understand our story to advocate for us. So that's just one thought I wanted to leave you with.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I really do. Because like 20 or so since 2004, I was involved with veteran service organizations locally here, right? And I've met a lot of great patriots along the way. They never served, but they're very passionate about helping veterans. Whether their mom or dad or brother or sister or somebody was in the military, somebody in their family was military, like Carol Lee up her sons served in the Marine Corps and Army. She's a patriot, but she's also a mom and she's a mom of Marines. But when you got just like Lauren, who is here on YouTube, watching on YouTube right now, she's never served in the military. And she said it right here. I don't have that strength. All of you are superheroes in my mind. I know you won't like the word superhero, but I could never do what you do. But yet she is supporting all of us veterans. And that to me is sometimes better than having, another veteran on my side, because like you said, Travis, we need civilians because a lot of times the people who work in the VA are civilians. They're not veterans, and they don't, go back to what you said, they don't understand, and that's where we as veterans, we have to educate our civilian brothers and sisters out there on the things that we've seen, the things that we've done. Yeah, they might not understand and they might not fully grasp what we're talking about because they weren't there in those situations, but yet humans are smart. They'll get it one way or another. So
yeah, one of my big experience with Objective Zero and traveling the nation and speaking is, a lot of my speaking engagements has been with the Air Guard, and one of the most common things that I heard was, well, I never deployed, or I never left the FOB, or, I didn't see what you saw. So they downplay what it is they actually did. Even though they signed that dotted line, they were willing to give everything for it. It's not their fault. It's that they didn't get to see it. But the thing that I received the most feedback from is when I acknowledged that trauma is trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter if it's combat. It doesn't matter if it's a form of assault, or whether you were in an accident or if on the FOB all you heard was the firefight, but you still heard those radio calls in of people being injured. You still had the mortars, the rockets, all of that. Don't compare your trauma to somebody else. Don't downsize your trauma, because you and I could be in the same exact accident and it could affect me completely different than it would affect you, based off of childhood experiences, based off of where you were in your mind, that mind state that you were in that day. All plays a role in it. But just acknowledging that I've had so many people come up and say, just the fact that you acknowledge your trauma is trauma and that your trauma is not any worse than mine, I now want to share with you, and gave them that open door to be able to share their experience and acknowledge what they went through was traumatic. And it was huge. I mean, it was probably the most eye-opening experience that I had is having those people come up to me and thank me for acknowledging their trauma, whether it was combat or not.
Yeah, Justin,
Yeah.
I think us veterans, we are so good at creating what I call antisocial social groups. I can only let my true self out around certain people of the same experience, you
That's
know.
so right. That's so freaking right.
But I do need to speak to something that goes a bit deeper than words. So, you know, when you're scanning a room, you can just tell by looking at a particular person that they're the way they're carrying themselves, like, holy shit, that girl's military. You know, there's a certain energetic disposition that I think we do need to be aware of, because because our energetic dispositions get sculpted with the things that we've seen. And if someone tried to explain how, you know, an energetic disposition came about, it wouldn't give that person a lived experience. So I do think, you know, we can start with being aware that without us even knowing it, we want to hang out with other people that have that same energetic disposition. You know, like, fuck me, I haven't slept in however long, and everything's, you know, I want to hear I essentially want to see myself. I don't want to feel alone, right? But a good veteran group, and I think Willis is doing it here, is when you go into this thing, it's like an energetic trampoline. You go in with energy, you leave with more energy. So we can circulate further and wider in our, you know, civilian settings, and see that this sense of connection isn't isolated to just someone who's, you know, happened to wear the same uniform. You know, we can get joy of connection. And like, and if we switch our goal to, okay, when I go to the gym, I don't just want to, you know, strengthen one part of my body. I want to strengthen all of it. Okay. And if there's a weak part of my body, I tend to avoid that. Right. So I see others, and this just could be Tim Thomas talking right now. I see others as a part of me. And if I'm to be truly strong, I can't just be strong in one area. I need all of me to be strong. You know, and so when I switch to that person's not that person's actually me, or I'm no longer Tim, I am, you know, Theory, Ty, Willis, you know, I'm not as good looking as Pippa, but the point is I'm no longer the person that I think I am relative to military service, because that's where I got stuck. If I had my sense of self-worth attached to my military service, and then that sense of self-worth was taken away, then I end up hanging out with other guys that have that same sort of sense of loss. And we create this antisocial social group. I think everyone's picking up what I'm trying to put down here.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of what I meant when I was diving into like setting the example as veterans, right? No matter which path it is that we go down to set that example for, setting the example for whether it be, you know, experiencing trauma, or setting the example for what may be a difficult transition from military to civilian life, or setting the example for, like Travis was saying, bridging that gap between civilian and military, so there can be more understanding and more commonalities, because, you know, Carolee is, you know, my mom does the same thing, right? You know, she was so against me joining the Marine Corps at first, so against it. You know, she told me any branch except the Marine Corps, and I did the exact opposite of what she said.
So if she told you to join the Marine Corps, you would have joined the Coast Guard.
No.
Could you see Theory in the Coast Guard?
No, absolutely not. No, but I will say this though. She afterwards, and she saw how awesome I felt after joining, right? And she saw how proud it made me when I graduated boot camp. Like when I got my EGA after that crucible and that hike back to the parade deck, I gripped my EGA that I got from my drill instructors so tight that it cut my hands. And like I have blood stains on my EGA that's in my studio right now. And like I gripped it so hard because I was so proud of that moment. and she saw that, and it was like an incredible, like she came to my boot camp graduation with my stepdad and my stepdad's sister and her daughter, and everybody saw that pride in how I carried myself, and just seeing a completely different kid, you know, than the one that I left to boot camp as. And after that, she decided she was more happy for me to have found that pride and that sense of belonging in the Marine Corps, and she supported everything. So, you know, I'm not saying, Carolee, that you were against what your sons were doing. I know that I'm pretty sure we've talked about that before.
We did.
Yeah. So, you know, I know that that's not the same for every mom. You know, obviously you don't want your kids as a mother or father to go into harm's way. And obviously joining the United States Marine Corps, where we're first in, last out, it's kind of one of those things where it's almost part of the job description, right? So, you know, obviously you don't want your kid to do that, but you also have to respect their decision as an adult. And after she saw that with me and how I completely transformed and I felt like a better person, I carried myself like a better person, a more confident person, she started to support. So bridging that gap was easier with the people that are showing that support. It's harder to do when I'm at O'Hare Airport and I have a sling on my arm from a shoulder surgery that I got, and I'm waiting for my big green sea bag because I'm going home on leave for convalescent leave for 3 weeks. And some guy walks past me in the airport, not knowing me from a hole in the fucking wall, and he goes, "You're a baby killer," and walks away from me. He doesn't know anything about me. He knows that I was obviously in the military because I had a high and tight, and I had a big green sea bag, and I had a shoulder sling. So he probably thought that I was injured in combat, in the combat zone, and I probably ended up, you know, unaliving a baby, like all these rumors are all said. So it's like I was flabbergasted by that, and I was so angry by that statement. Like I wanted to punch that dude so bad, but I obviously didn't, because I knew A, I would have gotten in trouble with command, and B, I wanted to be the bigger person, right? So right after that happened, there was a guy that came up to me and grabbed my sea bag and says, "Hey, thank you for your service. Don't listen to that guy. I heard what he said to you. Let me carry your bag out for you because you're obviously in a sling and I want to be able to help you. I appreciate what you're doing." So like, it was like a 2-3 second difference between what that guy said to me and then the nice person. So it's harder to bridge that gap with people who aren't going to support what we do as military, right? Because there's a lot of people who are against it. And that's sad because, you know, we go to fight for their rights to have, you know, the opinions that they have, and they love to post all over social media. And, you know, all the things that people do and take for granted, people in all different branches, they sacrifice for. So it's easier to bridge that gap with people who are showing that support. It's harder to do it when people think that you're a waste of space.
So TikTok is being janky at the present moment in time. We're probably going to lose the TikTok stream, just so people know out there. But it's about that time to wrap up anyway. We've been on here for almost 2 hours, but it's been great conversation. So I want to thank everybody in the TikTok chat right now. You guys are friggin' amazing. And everybody who's been here in the chat, and all of the panelists that came on tonight. So let's go ahead and close it out real quick. Let's start with Mr. Justin because he's new. So this is what we're going to do, Justin. Just say.
Did you tell him about the new guy initiation ceremony?
No.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Just some parting words. Just some parting words, Justin.
No, I appreciate you having me on. You know, parting words is it's going to take all of us to make a difference. Don't downplay anything that you've done. We all have a purpose in this world. We're all needed in this world. It takes every one of us to make it go around. So hold your head high, be proud of yourself, and be willing to reach out for help, and be willing to listen. Ask somebody how their day is going.
Heck yeah.
and I
right.
appreciate you all having me on here. So
Hey,
thank you.
you're very, very welcome. I'm going to answer the email and get you on my podcast. So we'll definitely do that. All right, Miss Carol Lee, you're up.
Well, I think everybody just needs to recognize you don't always know a veteran from a civilian in a grocery store, or unless they're wearing a hat or a jacket or a shirt or something along those lines. And it's really important to treat everybody with kindness, because you just don't know who it is you're talking to. And sometimes that one word of kindness or little conversation means the most and helps people get through another day.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. All right, Miss Pippa, you are up, dear.
I think the thing to remember is that everyone's experience is unique to each person, but it's no less important. And so all you can do is be true to yourself, but try to maintain that kindness for other people as you go through your journey and bring them along with you as well.
Heck yeah. I love it. All right, Mr. Tim, you're up, sir.
Yeah, I lost battery. I scrounged, got some AC. I'm like, I want to be here for the last bit. Love being on here today with you guys. Some absolute gold fell out of everyone's mouths. We are blessed to have our isolation broken in spaces like this. But if I could offer the people listening right now something that's really worked for me, especially in the veteran space, is if there's a veteran feeling all alone, ask them this really simple question. How many others do you think are going through what you're going through right now? And give it a number. And then if it's 10, 20, 1,000, put those people left and right of you, because they're willing you on right now. Because if you can find a way forward for you, you're going to find a way forward for them. And it might take you a week, a year, a decade to make forward progress, but that's the amount of time you're going to save all those other people. So before you've got a tribe, you can find your tribe by asking how many people are in the same situation. And, we've come to this through the veteran space. This could be anybody. It could be breast cancer. It could be anything. But ask yourself that question, put those people left and right of you, and know that they're willing you on, because at some point in the future, those people that you possibly haven't met yet are going to say words like, we're so glad that back in 2025, you made those decisions, because that's helped us move forward. I love you. Good energy being sent from down under.
Yet. All right, let's see. Let's go with Theory. You're up, sir.
Hey, easy, just simple message. Spread love, not hate. Love your neighbor. Be someone's stranger, like Willis likes to say. Ask that next difficult question, and just stay positive. If there's anything I've learned over the last 3 weeks that my wife has been sedated and intubated and now finally home, it's that was the most difficult part of my life. And there was a lot of people who were there for me and got me out of that dark space that I was in. And so be kind to everybody, and just show love. That's all I got.
I love it, brother. I love it. All right. So Theory took a little bit of my thunder. You are not alone. Listen, we all signed our name on that dotted line. We all have our own demons that we fight on a daily basis, right? So show up tomorrow because somebody wants you to be here. We love you and we care about you. Once again, he took my thunder. Be someone's stranger. What we mean by that is we as humans, we're more apt to talk to a complete stranger than the ones we love the most. So be somebody's stranger. If you're out and about and you're seeing somebody having a bad day, go up to them, say, "Hey, how you doing?" If they give you the red flags, "I'm okay. I'm living a dream. I'm hanging in there." Then you have to ask the next hard question. How are you really doing? That could be a 5-minute conversation or that could be a 5-hour conversation. So definitely be ready for that conversation. And then as Candace says, it takes a village. We all need to come together to help combat the things that we as veterans face. So it definitely takes a village. Like we say, always on home front sit rep. But we're saying it here on Tip of the Spear. Stay safe out there. We got your 360.